Okay, welcome everybody to Zoom land and Facebook land. We're here live. We never actually scheduled this in our webinar series, in our Ask the Building Expert webinar series, but we've had a lot of demand for this topic on monster houses. And thank you for attending. If you're joining us either on Zoom or Facebook, welcome. I see we have homeowners, some realtors, even some contractors, even maybe some monster house developers are on. Maybe they can learn something. But today is Tell the Truth Day. And so I'm going to be telling the truth about monster houses. And before I forget, I want to introduce my partner, Martin Pea. He's running all the IT, cranking the cranks to have the electricity run, and I don't know what else he's doing to have our Zoom thing functional and on Facebook. It's also National Chocolate Day. So, later on during the day, go help yourself to a chocolate bar or whatever. And it's on Martin. So, the topic is interesting. As they say in rap jargon, we're going to talk about the monster crib. And if you wanted to attend a Monster Mash webinar, you're too early because we're going to do that in October during Halloween time. And, I know some of you may want to mash a monster house instead of a monster mash, but that's even scary. We even have Count Dracula attending, and welcome. He's actually 545 years old today, or this year. So hopefully he doesn't ask me too hard questions about Transylvania because they have their own different building code there. Now, I'm going to make a disclaimer, and here's a disclaimer. I'm I'm Chinese, and when we did the research, most of the developers and contractors on monster houses have Chinese names. And I'm not related to any one of them, so just wanted to make that clear. And then the other thing is there's actually both good and bad monster houses. Okay, so the good monster houses I consider large houses that families live in, and they don't rent out rooms or rent out the house or anything. And those are the good monster houses. And where do we see those? I see those in Kahala, Hawaii Lower Ridge, Makakilo, Portlock. There's even some in Waipahu, Kalihi, Makakilo. Oh, I said Makakilo, Royal Summit. And what I mean is that these big houses, they're over 3,500 square feet, and they look like huge mansions. But who lives there is the owners, the residents. It's not a rental. It's not tenants renting separate rooms. And so those to me are good monster houses. I don't even call them monster houses. I just call them big houses. So the talk today is actually about the bad monster houses, or the bad big types of house. So let's go right into that. Hopefully you learn something. And if you have any questions, just feel free to post it in the chat or on Facebook, and then hopefully we'll read it. So let me skip over here and get right to this. So this webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection LLC, which is my company. And what we do is construction management, construction consulting, and that's probably the only commercial you're going to hear throughout this whole webinar. So monster houses. Well, what is a monster house? Well, it's a big house, but according to the city, a monster house is actually new large structures in older neighborhoods that often illegally rent out rooms. So what's happening here is, if you're able to see the PowerPoint, if you look at the image, the picture on the left, Okay, if that house is huge, yeah, but if one family lived in that house or one extended family and they're all related, I wouldn't consider it a monster house. But if they were renting rooms to unrelated parties, then maybe that's not so good. Okay, and then the other image is of a house building on Maui that kind of took a life on its own. And but most of my talk is going to be pertaining to houses in Honolulu. Okay, so my definition is a house that's really big that does not fit the character of the neighborhood, and there's portions of the house that may be illegal. Illegal meaning it doesn't conform to the building or zoning code, or it doesn't conform to the housing situation where they're renting it out to unrelated parties and they've got too many units for rent. Yeah, and by units, I mean bedrooms that turned into living units where they have their own wet bar, kitchen, and bathroom. Okay, so because of all this ruckus on neighbors complaining about, traffic situation, overload on sewer, the yards are getting smaller and smaller and the footprint of the house is getting bigger and bigger. The city council got involved, and there's actually, I call it the monster house ordinances, and there's two of them. And basically what the city council wanted to do is restrict these large houses from being built in older neighborhoods, and they're out of character, and they're maybe using it as rentals. Okay, so the two ordinances, one was passed in 2019. It's Ordinance 19-3 from Bill 79, and that was pretty big because it restricted the height of houses, the setbacks, maximum density, floor area ratio, which is FAR, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Restricted the number of wet bars to 2, no matter what size the house is. Restricted laundry rooms to 1. Restricted bathrooms to 9.5. That's 9 full baths and a half bath. Okay, and impervious surface areas, restricted that because it must not exceed 75% of the footprint of the lot. Also parking regulations, yard setbacks, and also, and I like this, subsequent inspections. And what does that mean? That means that at any time during the course of construction, the building inspector from DPP can go and take a look, and even for 1 year after the property is completed. And to me, that's big, because what happens after DPP signs off and closes a permit, they don't go back and take a look. So, after the permit's closed out, the developer can do whatever, make changes, and the city doesn't know about it, okay, unless neighbors complain. Also, the ordinance number 2 was passed in 2020, and it's ordinance 21-4 from Bill 90. And basically what that ordinance came into effect, restricting or actually canceling all building permit applications where there was no building permit actually issued. And basically, these developers who are building monster houses who submitted an application, they're going to have to submit a brand new application. Okay, so it's kind of a whole new ball game. It also restricted the floor area ratio from 0.7 to 0.6. And it may be mumbo jumbo to you right now, but I'll explain. It'll be a lot clearer later. So I like these ordinances because they were based on what the right thing to do was, and also helping the neighborhood and the community. So let's move along. So what governs monster houses? Well, there's laws of the land, and the laws of the land are basically two basic laws. It's the building code, which is the IRC, which stands for the International Residential Code, and the zoning code, which is the land use ordinance. Okay, these are the two laws that actually govern house construction. And by house construction, I'm talking about one house or two houses. Okay, so one or two family dwelling units. Okay, now the International Residential Code combined with the land use ordinance, okay, if all the conditions are followed, we wouldn't have all this rigmarole going on where developers are building a huge house with 19 bathrooms and 4 wet bars and not enough parking spaces and all that. So let's talk more about that. Building permit requirements. The building permit requirements actually required under the building code. Okay, so every house built, no matter if it's a monster house or not, needs a building permit. And if you have an old house on your lot and you want to knock it down to build a new house, you need a special permit called a demolition permit to knock that old house down before you build your new house. So in essence, you need two permits, okay? A demolition permit and a building permit to build brand new. Now, there's certain things that has to do with getting a building permit. And let me explain. Getting a building permit, it's two procedures. The first procedure is an application for the building permit, okay? And then the second procedure is the issuance of the building permit itself. So somebody doesn't go apply for the permit and then they get the building permit. There's two different things. You get, when you apply, you get assigned a building permit application number, okay? And so there's criteria, and the city was nice to actually have on their website a building permit plan format checklist and kind of like a to-do list, what's needed in order to get a building permit. And that's very helpful. So all these monster house developers, their architect and engineers have to comply with all these regulations. Otherwise, DPP is not going to issue the permit. So let me, I'll talk more about that later. There's also another form called the contractor statement. So what happens is the plans are submitted, and before the permit's issued at DPP, they're going to check up on the contractor. So if the contractor doesn't have a license, and it's all database connected. So they have their database connected to the state contractors licensing database, and it's easy to see whether the contractor has a license or not. So you have a general contractor that needs to sign the form attesting that he's properly licensed, and then the other specialty contractors such as electrical plumbing contractors have to sign the form also. So that's another guarantee that you have licensed contractors working on the property. What else do we have? We have a special inspection form. And what that is it's a third-party inspection. DPP relies on either the architect or engineer. And usually it's the architect or engineer of record. What that means is the person who actually drew the plans. And they're the third-party inspector attesting to DPP that they did inspect the foundation, they did inspect for termite treatment, the rebar ties, concrete, and all that. So that's another form. All these are required, yeah? So every monster house or any house built needs to comply with that. Also, there's a ESCP form or a plan, which is erosion and sediment control plan. What that is assuring that the dirt that is being dug out and graded on the property, during heavy rains, it's not going to end up flowing down the road into the storm drain. Okay, so that involves also the Department of Health and EPA. Now, getting back to the building plans, the law requires that a licensed architect or engineer be hired to draw the building plans, okay? And when the building plans are drawn up, there's certain things that are required, such as, let me see, you have to submit a survey. You know why? Because you want to know where the property lines are. You don't want to be building, on the neighbor's lot. Also, the survey is important because there's setbacks, and what that is space between your boundary line and the house. Okay, floor plans, elevation plans. Floor plans are like a bird's eye view. If you're, in the sky looking down, that's your floor plan. Elevation is basically the height. So if you look at the image, if you can see it, the image on the left, it's a front elevation. So you're looking at the front of the house and you see from the foundation to the roof. So DPP requires front elevation, side elevations, and rear elevations. And if your house is not a rectangle or square, they may require other elevations too. Okay, so these are requirements. If you don't have these, your plan gets kicked back and they're not going to issue a permit. So let's talk about setbacks. Okay, there's front, side, and backyard setbacks. And what that means is you can't build a house that's taking up the whole size of your lot. So as you can see from this picture, the house is there and the lot is surrounded by green. So there's a lot of open space, and we like to see that. And the city likes to see that, and it's also required. So you see these monster houses where they're just being built, almost taking up the whole footprint of the lot itself, and that's a no-no. We don't want to see that. Okay, so let's talk about floor area ratio, FAR, and what that is similar to what I talked about. It's the ratio between the building, the house, and the lot, the yard area. Okay, so basically, floor area ratio is a measurement of a building floor area in relation to the size of the lot. So basically, the calculation is you take your lot size, okay, multiply it by the ratio to get the size that's acceptable for the house. So in this example, and this is just an example, so you have a lot size, okay? So let's say your lot is 2,500 square feet, and I'm just using this as a example for discussion purposes. So 2,500 feet is a lot size times the floor area ratio is 0.7 equals 1,750. So what that means is on a lot size of 2,500, okay, based on the floor area ratio of 0.7, you can only build, your house can only be built up to 1,750 square feet. Now, you can build it smaller, but who wants to do that, right? So what happens is these monster house developers are using the floor area ratio and maxing it out. And that's why the ordinance got passed to reduce the floor area ratio from 0.7 to 0.6. Okay, so for example, if you have a lot that's 10,000 square feet, okay, times 0.7, your maximum residential building area is 7,000 square feet. Okay, so after the ordinance was passed to 0.6, so 10,000 square foot lot times 0.6 equals 6,000 square feet. So basically, in a 6,000 square foot lot, you can only build a house that's 6,000 square feet, okay, which is pretty big already. Now, let me explain that it also has to do with the exact zoning too, because if the zoning is R5, which is residential 5,000 square feet, okay, that's very restrictive. But if it's R7.5 or R10, that dictates a bigger footprint or bigger square footage of the house. Okay, so if you're confused, I got kind of confused when I first started 40 years ago, but I kind of know the situation now. The main thing is the law is there so that developers don't use the whole lot, okay, to build the house. Now, this is very important. The affidavit, and every single Monster House developer has to sign this affidavit. And what is the affidavit anyway? Basically, the legal term is a declaration of restrictive covenants. And what that is a document that's recorded on title and runs with the land. Runs with the land means if the developer signs the form, later on he sells the house, okay, the contents of the affidavit still applies. That's what runs with. So even if the house is sold 5 times, they still got to abide by the declaration of restrictive covenants. And what is a restrictive covenants? Okay, so the city actually made this form, and the developer needs to provide the building permit application number, the square foot of the lot, the square foot of the house. Okay, also no portion of the structure that was already approved under the building permit application shall be converted into a separate dwelling unit. So basically, the developer's attesting that once he signs the affidavit, he says, okay, it's only one house. I'm not going to use it for 2 houses later or convert it into 2 separate units or multiple units or whatever. So guess what? People may be signing the affidavit and just saying, yeah, I'll sign it to get the permit. And then later on, it's wild, wild west, anything goes. Okay, so that's the key, okay? And that's why these monster houses that are illegal, when you go back and look at the floor area ratio and even the count of the bedrooms and wet bars and bathrooms, it's all off, okay? It's different from what's shown on the original plans to get the permit to what's actually as built under construction. And then you go to the affidavit and you look and go, hey, this is bogus. This is not true, okay? So developers don't want me to tell you this, but there's some developer tricks that are done. And basically there's 5 types of monster house developers, okay, in my idea, okay? There's the fruitcake developer. There's the I don't know developer, which is I don't know, that the acting dumb developer, okay? And then there's other developer, the ignore the law developer, sign the affidavit and then do whatever you want, okay? Ignorance of the law is no defense. Okay? And there's also the large family developer, where it's a monster house, but one family is going to live there, extended family. Guess what? If it complies with everything in the building and zoning codes, it's legal. So there's actually legal monster houses as well as illegal monster houses. Okay, so here's some of the developer tricks to be aware of. There's wrong information on the building plan. So when you submit the plans to get a building permit, the information is incorrect. The other thing is when they build a house, let's say it's a 2-story house, and you know, it's one house, but then later on, after the permit's closed out, they install a door, okay, at the hallway between the 1st and 2nd floor. Okay, and then now all of a sudden you have 2 separate units, one on the top, one on the bottom, because you have 2 kitchens. Okay, maybe you had 1 wet bar, but they decided to add other kitchen components. Okay, and legally, the definition of a kitchen is 3 components: a sink, a stove, something to cook, and a refrigerator. Okay, so sometimes you have a wet bar, and then later on you add in a stove and a refrigerator. All of a sudden now it becomes a 2nd kitchen or 3rd kitchen, which is actually illegal if the zoning and the building permit only allowed for 1 kitchen. The other thing is, another trick is you add more kitchens, okay? Another trick is you add more bathrooms. Some houses, monster houses, you got, 15 bedrooms, and each bedroom has their own bathroom. So guess what? Each bedroom now becomes a separate unit because they just bring in a hot plate or whatever. Now, you got 10 kitchens. Okay, is that illegal? Yes, that is, because you can't have, well, the other reason why it's illegal is because you're renting each room to unrelated parties. They're tenants, okay? They're not related to the owner. Sometimes the owner doesn't even live there. Okay, so that's another problem. Now, the wrong information on plans is kind of known to DPP, and so they're trying to correct that. What's some other smoke and mirrors thing? More developer tricks with no treats, okay? You convert a wet bar into a kitchen. That's pretty common. You add more square feet. Once a house is built, and let's say they follow the plans and the plans call for 6,000 square feet. Later on, they add 800 more square feet. That's not even on the initial building plan. So guess what? That's illegal because it's not covered under the initial building permit. The other thing is encroachments into required setbacks. So let's say you have 8-foot setback or 5-foot setback. Now you expand your house into the yard setback area. Now you only have 2 or 3 feet. No, you did not get approval for a 0 lot line house. You got approval for a single family dwelling, and you got to follow the setbacks. The other trick is you have a living room, family room, great room, bonus room, storage room, rumpus room, or whatever you want to call it. Okay. And I've seen it on building plans where they call it a family room, rumpus room, or storage. And it's like, hello, why do you need a 1,000 square foot storage room or workshop? And later it's turned into, guess what? Bedrooms. So now you got so many bedrooms, and after the conversion, you got so many more. So it's choppy, chop suey. And if the building inspector went and took a look, he will say, this doesn't match the original plans, right? So that's why they passed the ordinance allowing the inspector, after the house is built, for up to 1 year to go back and check the house. Okay, and I like that. That's a good thing. So advice from the building expert. Okay, what's my advice to you guys, to everybody? Well, especially the neighbors in the neighborhood who don't like these monster houses, you got to make sure that they're following the plans. And I know DPP, they're hardworking, they're short-handed, there's really not enough inspectors to go around. And I think we need more enforcement. So what I'm thinking is we need more teeth. We need more teeth in the laws. Okay, the law, I mean, it's kind of ludicrous to assess a $50 a day fine when a developer is building a $2 million monster house. That's nothing. So, I mean, make the fine bigger, $5,000 a day, right? You gotta have some ammunition to force these people to comply, or just say, we'll give you 45 days to correct it. If not, you need to tear it down or something, right? So I think more action needs to be done. Put pressure on DPP. Well, they're already under enough pressure, but complain to your city council, whoever the politicians are in your district. Also complain to the prosecuting attorney and whoever else. Get more neighbors involved. That's the only way that things are going to stop. I mean, right now there's a trend, right? We don't want these kind of monster houses in our neighborhood. So what do? If it's legal, it's legal. We can't complain about it. We can say we don't like it. But if it's illegal, right, then, let's do something about it. And there's actually monster houses who, I can tell you, and DPP can verify that they knocked down an old house without permit. They started building foundation and like the first level, without a permit. There's no permit, and no one ever applied for one. Then you got another situation where they started building and they added more bathrooms and wet bars. That's a no-no. So we got to put a stop to all this nonsense. It's kind of getting ridiculous. So that's what I have to say. Now, I got another little commercial here. So we do this Ask the Building series on building and construction issues and construction matters. And Martin and I give 2 webinars a month on building and construction. So join us, and our website is askbuildingexpert.now.site. And I think I've given like 150 webinars so far from last year. And upcoming, we have contractor bidding, window safety, hazardous building materials. So if you're interested, sign up. And also, we already gave a whole bunch of webinars on roofing, hurricane ties, concrete spalling, and electrical plumbing, a whole bunch of topics. And we have all our webinars recorded on video on demand. You don't need a Netflix account. You can just go to our website and watch it for free anytime you want. In fact, Martin told me we should start giving out microwave popcorn boxes to people who say they're going to watch more than 2 webinars. And I'll even throw in some Mochi Crunch or something. So, you know, we're always open to suggestions. That's how we got to do this Monster House one, because we had a demand, people saying, hey, can you talk about it? We want to know what's going on. So I'm open to suggestions. And also I'm thinking about, you know, since I did this Monster House one, I'm thinking about doing a Monster Rail one. How about that? Or maybe a Monster Red Hill or a Red Hill Monster. Okay, but speaking about the rail, actually, I'm for the rail, okay? Believe it or not, I'm for the rail. I'm for it to be in San Diego. And yesterday, I was driving by Middle Street and I passed the rail under construction and something magical happened. Yeah, my wallet felt lighter. So it's just a shame. But, you know, that's for another topic and another day. And I tried to fit all this information in 30 minutes, and I think I did a pretty good job. I didn't want to go overboard because I wanted to be able to have time to ask questions on anybody that has any. So feel free to use the chat feature on Zoom if you're on Zoom, or if you want to talk live, ask your question, open up your microphone and you can start talking. Also, if you're on Facebook, post your comments on my Facebook page, and if you have comments, questions, whatever, I'm game. And by the way, I do not work for a DPP, although I actually work with them. I need their help, and they're doing what they can. And you know, my opinion, things need to be a little better, but I think we're heading down that road. So what else do I have? Okay, so it's question and answer time. You got questions, I got answers. Now, if later on you think of a question, you can always give me a call, 808-422-2132. If you don't use 808, I'm not going to get it. That's the landline number, so don't text it a number. My email is lanceluke@hawaiibuildingexpert.com. If you want to text, I have my cell number. It's 808-754-3425. If you're a Monster House developer, a contractor, give me a call. We can talk. I'm interested in talking. Okay. Also, if you're work for the city council or DPP or whatever, I'm open. If you want to meet, let me know. I'll be happy to go meet, because I want things to be a lot better. It's not going too good right now, so it could be a lot better. So let me turn it over to Martin. But once again, before I forget, thank you guys for tuning in. It's an important issue, and I'm open to questions now. So Martin, do we have any on the chat? I'm not reading the chat. Do we have to wait Martin up? I
Yes,
think,
yes. I had to unmute myself. Sorry, yeah. I had them off.
okay.
Yeah, we have a couple comments or questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to, look at them, or you want me to read them. I can read them off.
Yeah. Go ahead and read it off.
Okay, well, the first one here is from Kate, and the violations have been reported, especially in Civil Beat. So most are aware. What neighbors want is more careful DPP inspection and stoppage when not following. Waiting for law changes is time consuming. Yeah, we know that. And neighbors' complaints go unheeded. So any advice on that? I know you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. I hear your pain, and thanks. I know that it's a long road, but if you don't, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if no one complains, nothing's going to happen. If you complain 1, 2, or 3 times, nothing may happen. Okay, but you got to keep complaining. You got to get more people to complain. And when there's a groundswell of people complaining, then they're going to think twice. If they only get 1 complaint, they can toss it on the side, right? So the idea is to get more people complaining, put pressure on your politicians, and do what I do. I just say, hey, I call them up. Can you have the council person call me, and their assistant calls, or I email and go, something needs to be done. And I don't mind saying, I called 2 weeks ago, no one called me back. And then finally I get an email, oh, we apologize, whatever. And I even schedule a meeting. I say, let me go and talk in person. Or if there's a hearing, I try to make time and go to the city council hearing, and I state my piece. Or if you don't have time, submit written testimony, and by law they have to accept it, and they have to read it. Okay, so, and then it's filed also. So keep doing it. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, look, it took all these years to get to where we are now. We're in a lot better situation, although it may not feel that way if you live on the same street or in the neighborhood as a Monster House. But it's happening more than it did several years ago. Okay, and DPP knows, they feel the pressure. So just keep the pressure on, and things will get a lot better.
Okay, Lance, thanks, yeah. The next, I guess, question and comment here is from Barb, and she asks, could you work with neighborhood boards on effective ways to ID illegal houses and get DPP to take action? I'm especially interested in neighborhood specific zoning regs.
I'm willing to help as much as I can. I do not have time to be attending neighborhood board meetings or talking to each neighborhood board. But I think if we start the process of communication, you let me know what you need and what I can help with, and then I'll try. I'm involved in so many different organizations, so my time is kind of thin, but I'm willing to help where I can. And because I'm a national building expert and Hawaii building expert, when I go to city council or talk to people, it's not like they're talking to some homeowner lay person that doesn't know anything, because I can talk shop with them. I can talk building code, I can talk zoning code, so they're more apt to listen. And the neighborhood board too, I mean, they have say, although they can't make policy decisions, they have a say. So keep what you're doing and reach out to me, and I'll see what I can do to help.
Thanks, Lance. We got some coming in on Facebook too. Here's one from Susan. I have a situation going on right now. What is the threshold amount for plumbers to be licensed?
Oh, okay.
They must be building a
That's
monster
not,
house.
I don't know if it's a monster house question, but that's okay. If you have a question in general pertaining to building code, contractor licensing or anything, now's the time. You got a real live expert here, so take advantage. Plus that we're not charging you, it's free. And free is always a magic word. So back to the question. The threshold for licensing is, there's really no threshold. If you're doing plumbing work, you need to have a license. And there's different licensing categories for plumbers. So if someone's coming in and doing $200 worth of plumbing work, they still need to be licensed. Okay, if they're telling you otherwise, tell them to show you the section of the contractors licensing law with respect to plumbing contractors, and where's the exemption? Okay, there's no exemption. They have to be licensed. So and same with electricians. Plumbing and electricians are similar. Okay, now there's a threshold for when you need to get a building permit, but that's different from the licensing. Yeah, so continue
Okay, Lance.
fixing your bad plumbing.
Mm. Yeah, we have Michael here that I guess who's commenting here. The handyman law allows workers to work without a license up to $1,500. Above that, they must be licensed. Be sure that permits are also obtained to work for work requiring such. True, that's true. So comment
What
on that?
was that a question?
No,
I kinda-
it was a comment. Looks like it was just a comment from Michael.
Oh, okay. Thanks for that. Let me embellish. There's a handyman exemption. Okay, so basically you can do work up to $1,500 without having a license. That does not include plumbing or electrical work. Okay, so like I said, if you're doing $200 of plumbing work, electrical work, you still need a license. Now, if you're doing carpentry or drywall, you do not need a license. Okay, if you're doing $500, worth of that kind of work. So if you're in doubt, there's a DCCA contractors license board, or call the consumer protection line, and they can tell you, or call me up. I can fill you in. Although contractors hardly ever call me up. They call me up to swear at me because I'm stopping them from doing a job. But hey, they need a license, or they need a permit. So what else we got?
Well, I get, let's see, we have Chun, I think, making a comment maybe here. There was a time when we could not build more than 50% of the land area. DPP watered down these rules.
Well, you gotta weigh the situation where there's, right now there's a shortage of housing. And so it got kind of under, wasn't under control. It got out of control. So what happened was the government decided we need more affordable housing. So let's do ADUs. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's let more people live in the house or whatever. And so it kind of got lax. And then when these monster houses came up, then it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And it's just like the 201H, where you're allowed to take any land zone for anything and build affordable housing. And I don't like that either, but that's a whole nother webinar. So yeah, it's just evolving over time. I mean, look at Kaka'ako. It's like overbuilt already, and they're not even done yet. So it's just crazy. And then the more houses they build, they're not making it any cheaper. So what is the definition of affordable housing? Well, the reality is people can't afford to buy affordable housing. That's the reality. So thanks for your comments. This is very lively. We should have passed out popcorn and drinks or something.
Okay, thanks, Lance. Yeah, we have another question on the Zoom side here. It's a quick question. 3712 Sierra is about 11,500 square foot lot. There's already a 4,000 square foot home, and now have a permit for a second 6,000 square foot home. Is that allowable? Seems the FAR, that floor area ratio, is about 0.9.
No, if it's 0.9, that's not allowed, but I don't know, whoever said that, where are you getting that information from? If you look at the building plans, that should state all the details, the codes and all that. And I don't know how they got their ratios, but it seems kind of off. It should be either 0.6 or 0.7. So you may want to double check that. But what was the address again, Martin?
3712 Sierra. That's Sierra
37,
Drive, I guess, yeah.
3712 Sierra. Okay, I'm not familiar too much with that one. I'm familiar with 3615 and the one across the street where it's a downslope lot. And I was there one day when they were grading, and no house is built at the time, but I was actually checking out the house across the street from that. If you look at the photo in back of my picture, that's actually a leva, and that's a house. I think it's on Makanani Drive, and that's the property where they knocked down old house without a permit, and they built foundation and like started the first level without a permit. And that area actually is being built up. They got like huge houses in the area, and I don't consider all of them monster houses because like families, big families live there. So it's kind of a shame because it's like you know, from my alma mater, Kamehameha School, I can look down and see this monster house being built. So we got any other questions or comments?
I don't see any more in the Zoom or the Facebook, but had a couple, I guess, a little earlier. Let me just go through these. It says, to be clear, who actually sets the rules for monster house construction? Is it the local city building department or the state?
Okay, let me give you a little history. In the past, and I've been doing this for 42 years now, there was two departments. There was a building department and there was a zoning department. They were not together. So I would apply for a building permit. I take my plans to the building department, and then I have to go to the 7th floor of the same building to go to the zoning department. It was like two different offices with different people. So recently, they combined the two departments into DPP, Department of Planning and Permitting. So it's like one entity, one department, which I don't know if the name is that good or not. It should be Department of Building Safety and or something. But anyway, so just a couple of years ago, the state got involved because each county were operating under different building codes. So what happened is, and to make this a short explanation, the state of Hawaii got involved and they made a state building code which incorporates the local building code. So what's happening is there is a state building code and there's a city and county building code, and it's the same building code. Okay, so it's basically a city and state code. So, and the monster houses are under the International Residential Code. For commercial buildings, there's an International Building Code. So there's a difference between the two codes. And there's not only one or two codes, it's like over 10 different building codes. So there's fire codes, electrical code, plumbing code, and all that. So, but that's for a different webinar. So basically, to answer the question, yes, there is one code, which is a state and city building code.
Okay, Lance, thanks you. Got a couple more here that you can probably address. How can good neighbors monitor monster houses in their backyards? We cannot go inside the house to see what they are building. And what can we do if the developer changes things after the house is built?
Okay, so monitor the situation. And when you say good neighbors, maybe even bad neighbors can participate too. But you have to monitor, be aware of your neighborhood, almost like, a neighborhood watch, but instead of for crime, for illegal activity that's not that criminal in nature, but it's like taking advantage of the building and zoning code. So basically, if there's way too many cars parked there and they're not visitors, they're people living there, and you count the number of cars and it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Or you see additional construction going on, or you see too many people that are not related, they're tenants. I mean, just keep making calls and have inspectors come and look. And there's building code and zoning inspectors, and they can check on these things. Now, do they want to do that? Well, maybe not, but that's part of their job, right? So every complaint has to be followed up on. They cannot just let it die and throw it in a rubbish can. So if you call DPP directly and you don't get any positive reaction or whatever, call the city council people, call your state representatives, call people who are elected politicians in your area, and keep calling them and complaining. And they have to do something. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. So that's what good neighbors can do. Just keep track of what's going on in your neighborhood and complain. I know local style before, especially local and Japanese, you don't want to make a big deal, right? No pilikia, you don't want to get people in trouble and all that. But I think the time has come where we have to step up and take some action. I mean, talk to Sierra Club, Alter Circle, look for people that can help. There's even some organizations, I think there's like a Hi Good Neighbor, it's called, and they kind of monitor monster houses and that kind of thing. So join that group, be part of it. You got to be part of the conversation and help. Your neighbors should be helping each other. We shouldn't let these people ramrod things and thumb their noses at us because there's nothing being done. I mean, we need to clamp down on these people. Definitely. What else we got?
Oh, totally agree, Lance. Totally agree. And we have one here that's probably our last one, I think, based on your time, but we'll see. My family owns an old house on a big lot in Kamuki. The contractor told us that they can build 2 new houses or 1 big monster house. So my question is that true?
Well, I don't know, but based on the criteria that I gave you, if you're on at that time, it could be true. It's entirely true. If you have a big lot, because look what's happening in Kaimiki, Palolo, Kapahulu, Manoa, Nu'uanu, Kapalama Heights, Waipahu, Kalihi, and this is some of the areas. Some of these lots were big. There's some Kaimiki lots where the lot is like over 10,000 square feet. And there's one house, old house built in like the 30s or 40s that is 820 square feet. Yeah, you could build a huge house, and depends on the zoning, you may be able to build 2 houses, right? So it could be entirely true, but there's a difference between building a big house and building an illegal monster house, right? If it's all for your relatives, extended family, I know with the cost of land and housing now, it's easier to renovate your old house or build a new house, and instead of having your kids live on their own house, maybe you have your kids live with you, mom and dad, and you have a big extended family there. There could be like 3 generations. I've seen situations where there's 3 generations living in one huge house. And is it a monster house? Well, it's a big house, but it's not illegal, right? So to me, the connotation of monster house is basically a illegal house. It doesn't conform to the building or zoning code. That's what I call, my true definition of a monster house. So it could be entirely true, but maybe if you need a second opinion, talk to an architect, right? Or have the contractor explain to you what he's doing and what do you want for the property. I'm sure you don't want to build a monster house. You want to build a house that's big enough to handle whatever you want, right? If you have an extended family come and live on the property with you. So, all right, got any more comments or questions?
Well, I just had I guess I'm not sure if it's a comment or question because it just came in on Facebook. Says I called my senator and representative and council's office. The monster home was still allowed to destroy the terrace for a hayao. Ooh, not so good. They got an archaeology firm to state nothing was there. It seems that no one is able to stop monster homes once DPP gives the green light. So there seems to be a process, there needs to be a process where the community can be involved before the permit is issued. So it's more of
Okay.
a comment. It's more of a
Well,
comment. but-
Yeah, I have a comment to that, and I appreciate that. The statement is not entirely true, and here's the reason why. Because in the building code, it allows the DPP to step in and stop work if it doesn't conform to the initial building permit application. Okay, and here's something that you may not know. Every single building plans are stamped by DPP, and it has a disclaimer that if they made a mistake, if DPP was in error on reviewing the plans and issuing the permit, they can always change. Okay, if some of the plans are erroneous, they can step in. If the construction is not to code, DPP can step in and stop the construction, issue a stop work order, or in fact, if they're building let's say they're building illegal bathrooms, they can make, DPP can actually force the developer and owner to tear that portion down. It's there in the law already. Now, what are they doing about it? Maybe not too much, but the law is there already. It just needs to be enforced. And that disclaimer is very strong. It basically says, if we made a mistake, let's say I'm DPP, if I reviewed your plans, I issued a permit, but I made a mistake, or if something in the code, we missed it, we have a right to go back and tell you, hey, you got to fix this, you got to do this, you got to do that. So there's no defense where the owner says, oh, you approved it, tough luck, I can build whatever you approve. No, that's not the case. So I know there's one monster house developer that filed a building board of appeals. His attorney filed something and they're going to argue that. So I guess we got to monitor that and see how that goes. And if I had time, I would attend or submit something in writing to DPP saying, based on the evidence, I don't think you should change your ruling. If you made a ruling that says the developer did this wrong, you should stick by it. So we got any other comments or questions?
Well, I hear you, Lance. I mean, it sounds like it's gonna, have to evolve into some kind of a legal battle like everything else does, yeah, in order to really get it cleared up. But there was a kind of a follow-up to that same comment, and it's kind of a question to the comment is, so when DPP says their hands are tied, are they lying?
Yes and no. Okay, so here's the situation. So let's say a monster house developer built extra bathrooms or whatever, and DPP says, no, you can't do that. That wasn't on the initial plans or something like that. Once the building board of appeals is filed, or the developer hires their attorney, the DPP inspector can't do much. So their hands are tied in that respect. And then the higher ups in DPP take over. The building board of appeals is a separate entity that's within the jurisdiction of DPP already. So, but there's more teeth. They can easily turn it over to Corp Counsel, right? Or which is a city entity, or turn it over to the prosecuting attorney's office for review, right? So that may be coming down. We don't know. So the answer to your question is, I think DPP is making every effort to do what they can. But when they say their hands are tied, it may be because it got elevated to a management level, and the original inspector has no jurisdiction in that point, right? So you know how corporations are run, or military. So sometimes it's like out of your hands. In fact, sometimes when I'm working and it gets elevated to a legal thing, it's out of my hands at that point too. The attorneys take over. So this was pretty lively discussion. I'm glad we actually had this. Hopefully you guys learned a lot and got new information, got insight into how to apply for building permit and what's required and the code and all that. So Martha, we got any last questions or comments or last words?
No, that's all I see, Lance. I think, like you said, we had a lively one. It was good. I like these.
All right, good. So on behalf of Martin and myself and Ask the Building Expert series, we thank you for attending. I know this was a very interesting, top of mind topic, monster houses. Keep, your vigilance there, and keep on it. Don't let these developers get away with stuff. Okay, so keep safe, everybody. We'll see you at the next webinar. Aloha. Thank you.
Mahalo.